Welcome to White Label American Podcast. This is a podcast that brings you bold, in-depth interviews with interesting people that are mostly immigrants taking down artificial walls one story at a time. This is a podcast that empowers immigrants to share their stories and listen to those of others. Thank you for joining us. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of White Label American. Thank you all for joining us today. And before we meet today's guests, I would like to invite our new listeners and old listeners who haven't done it yet. Go give us 5-star reviews. If you haven't given us a 5-star review, 5 stars. Give us on your favorite podcasting platform. You've been enjoying this podcast. You know it's the right thing to do. So take the honorable shame and hit the podcast apps and give us a 5-star review. Otherwise, Baba Yaga will come get you. So you don't want Baba Yaga to come get you because today's episode is all about Mother's Day and you got to make your mama proud. So be a good kid, you know, do the right thing. And if you want to show more love and, take it to the next level, you can sign up for Patreon for as low as $3. There's loads of bonus content out there, and you have our in-house regular Ashwin. So with me over there, we discuss a whole lot of stuff. We just did a recording on the show Beef Part 1. We'll talk about beef again with Yuan, hopefully, because it ties into social media, the anger, and how people overreact and things like that. So we'll discuss on more stuff like that. I mean, we are immigrants. We have opinions. That's not just tied to how people came to America. It goes further than that. So that's on Patreon only. Give us money and we'll give you access to that. Capitalism, yes, we do that too. So with all the good stuff being said, go give us 5 stars. You can buy our merch. Go to the www.whitelabelamerican.com. You get access to our merch, support small businesses and veteran-owned businesses. You can also give us feedback. We love feedback, constructive feedback. If you got negative Nancy's to send to us, well, we'll send it to the same place that it all goes to. Thank you very much for the person who's doing that on YouTube. I appreciate you. You helped me with my algorithm too as they climbing up. So I appreciate you. I've seen your comments. I don't know what I have to do with Joe Biden's son's laptop, but oh well. But I saw the comments. Thank you. So, with all that being said, let's meet today's guests. The journey of many immigrants includes the transformative experience of becoming a parent and embarking on a new chapter in their relationship with motherhood. Today, I have the honor of featuring 3 immigrant mothers on my first Mother's Day episode. 2 of our guests are returning for the second time, and we are excited to welcome a first-time guest. If you missed episodes 145 and 146, I encourage you to check them out to learn more about Preet and Murielle Miszcak. Additionally, Bertha Jimenez solo episode will be coming soon. She's our first timer, in case you weren't paying attention. So, long-time listeners of the podcast may already be familiar with her husband, Ashwin. I already said his name before, so you get it again. That's enough Ashwin for today. So, he's our mainstay, if you didn't know. All of our featured moms share a few things in common. They are in interracial marriages. They are raising bilingual kids in different cultures, navigating interracial marriages, and carrying on their family traditions while forging their own paths. So, with that being said, welcome to the show, everybody. How's everyone doing today?
Thank you so much.
Nice to be here, Raphael.
Nice to meet you, everyone.
Hey, thank you all for coming. It's an honor to have you. And I know we are not recording exactly on Mother's Day, but this episode will come out the week of Mother's Day. So
But we trust you with that timing.
Yes. So happy Mother's
When
Day.
is Mother's Day anyway?
Yes. Well, yeah, that's right.
It's who keeps up with this.
That's right. So also, I should have said this before we began recording, a few of my patrons, a couple of mothers who support this podcast, who are also immigrants, sent some questions. And a friend who also has a podcast, who does a podcast that covers a lot of immigrant-related topics. She's also an immigrant. Sent two questions. So I will be letting you all know when I introduce those questions. And it's just for the sake of transparency. But we're all about fun and we'll still have fun. It's not gonna be like all serious and world war. We're not gonna solve all the world problems today. But at the same time, we're still here to have fun. We are here to learn, and it's all about y'all's journey. All right. So, Bertha, you're the first timer. So, um, when I drop the first question, I think we'll allow you to start the floor. But before we start the questions, let everybody just go ahead and introduce yourselves to the audience so they meet you all officially. So, Bertha, do you want to go first?
Sure. Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Bertha Jimenez. I came to New York in 2009 for my PhD. And actually, that's where I met Ashwin when we were both doing our PhDs. And now I'm a proud mama of a 3-year-old named Edgar Raya. So I'm really happy to be here. I also a professor at NYU. I'm teaching entrepreneurship and innovation management. So thank you so much for the invitation.
Hey, we're glad to have you, and we look forward to having you back again for your solo episode. So, Preet, you want to go next?
Yeah, hello everyone. Nice to be back here again, and greetings to Raphael's army that's out there, all the people that listen in. It's nice to be here and talking about something that's very close to my heart, but of course, I'm sure both the ladies here, our experience of motherhood here in the U.S. I moved here in 1999 and then met my husband. Didn't really plan to become a mother in New York, but things just happen, fate, and it just happened organically, and you just go with the flow. And before I know it, I now have a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old, been raising them in Brooklyn. And in the meantime, holding down a career in the media industry, as Raphael's spoken about before.
All right.
Hi, I'm Murielle. I came to the US in 2007 from Switzerland.
Same year as me.
I I did not plan to be a mother here either. It happened, and I now have 3 kids, 6, 8, and 12, in the public school system. It's it's a little roller coaster ride and always something, but I thoroughly do enjoy it. And I think maybe we do solve world war problems by being mothers and raising kids for the future. I'm also the director of Kinderhaus, which is a very progressive German immersion preschool, which is kind of my other child. And yeah, we're into education and forming the future generation.
Oh, yes. So, thank you again, and appreciate the 3 of you, and you all do amazing jobs. And yes, you all solve world problems. World problems. Let me not say war. We don't need war, but
I said war.
you all prevent wars in your own ways.
That's right.
But so I think something you all have said ties into the question that my good friend Beatrice, the host of In Betweenish podcast, sent. So I will start from there. So Beatrice asked, how has your cultural upbringing influenced your view on motherhood, whether that is to have children and how you parent them? So who would like to go first?
Yeah, I can take it.
Okay.
So I grew up, of course, as you know, in Kenya, but in a very Indian household, with multi-generational household. My grandmas were there. My dad's mom all the time stayed with us, and my mom's mom would take, turns staying at her different siblings' houses. And so I had my grandmothers also that were part of my upbringing. And, it was pretty strict. We had to have respect for our elders and behave ourselves and please and thank yous and clean up our mess, if we left a mess. But at the same time, we're in Nairobi and we're in Kenya. So we have, people picking up after us anyway. People have been helping us make our beds and iron our clothes and stuff like that. So it was a mixed bag between having it together and then also, being pampered at the same time. And so for me, some of that doesn't apply to motherhood in the US because I need my kids to pull their own weight,
Yep.
and clean their room, which is still a massive battle with the teenager at the moment. And I've learned that I have to sort of let it go. I can't be on him about it every day. There's some days I just have to turn a blind eye and be like, that room doesn't exist in the house. And then there are other days when I'll be like, okay, today is the day. You're going to go for it and you're going to sort this out. But definitely the values I grow up with, respect for elders, being polite, and then something that we did in the tradition that we had, which I'm sure the ladies here have too, is eating dinner as a family every night at the table, I go into some American households, even my in-laws sometimes, and we're eating in front of the television. Everybody's eating something different from a different restaurant. It was a big deal to cook dinner and eat as a family. That was very important for me, and that would give us a chance to just reconnect at the end of the day, just check in with everybody about how the day went. And I'm not saying those conversations are always peaceful at that table. Sometimes we're arguing with each other, or we're not seeing eye to eye, or somebody doesn't want to talk and wants to be quiet, but we're there, we're with each other. We're taking that time and we're putting off the screens because that's the biggest distraction now. And then I would say one more thing was education. That was something that was always important, especially for my dad, because he came from a village in India. He never had formal education for very long in his life. He did a little bit of, middle school and high school, and then he was straight into work at the age of 14. And he always told us, nobody can ever take away your knowledge. You can lose everything in life. People can take everything away from you. But if you get a good education, no one can take that away from you. And that's something we always talk to the boys about. Making sure that they stay on top of their studies. They don't have to get A's, but they have to do their best. If we see them being lazy, there's consequences for that. Nothing major, but they'll lose their iPhone or whatever, whatever. Whatever it is, it's going to make them upset.
Yeah, you reminded me of some of the things that Michelle Obama said on, what's it called again? The talk that I saw, I think it was based on her book, the tour that she, what's the I think I read it down from them. The Light We Carry.
Mm-hmm.
It's on Netflix now with where she was being interviewed by
Oprah.
Oprah.
Yeah, I saw that.
I haven't finished watching the whole thing, but yeah, the dinner table conversations. Yeah, it's part of it. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that. Who else?
I can go ahead.
Sure.
Let me try to get my thoughts back together. It's so interesting to listen to you and such a special background. I was just thinking to myself, I was so thrown off before when I was supposed to say who I am, because I've never met an Indian heritage family from Kenya. It's just extremely special and interesting. The founder and owner of Kinderhouse is actually Indian, and I see lots of reflection in what you told so far. And I learned so much from her. I mean, she's been such a great mentor and teacher along the way at Kinderhouse, where I've been since 2013. And I know her parents, I love them, and I see so much similarity with the educational part. Anyways, in Switzerland, I went to a Waldorf school, Rudolf Steiner School, as we call it. I grew up very different. I grew up very, I wouldn't say anti-authoritative, but just, my mom always said, we're all here together in this world, and children are not less because they're children. So I was given a lot of responsibility in decision and just in how I want to be from the beginning on. And I think I carry this on with my own kids. They have a lot to say. So they have a lot to say, what they want to eat, where they want to go, what they want to do. School-wise, I grew up with no pressure And I try, although they're going to public school, to do the same. I do not want to put any pressure on them. Fortunately, they're all three in relatively good schools. My younger two are going to 321. They've been at Kinderhouse until pre-K, and then for kindergarten and up, they are now in 321. My daughter went to 39 actually, which was much more pressure and rigorous than 321. Both Park Slope schools, both good schools. But I see a huge difference also with her and the stress level. And I'm thinking this is just all so early. And I think the biggest carry-in to being a mom is I want to take off that academic stress that is being placed by the American government on our children. I want them to be children because in Switzerland and in Western Europe, children are allowed to be children. They are not being drilled to read and write at the age of 3 or 4 or 5. And they're still doing better at the end of the day when they're done with their whole education than the American graduation schoolers. Graduates, sorry. There we go.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was going to come to that, but
Yeah.
before we get
I take it all away already, right?
no, that's fine. That's fine. No.
But
Look,
I think, yeah, like being a child is one of the most important things that I took from Switzerland to like how I raise my kids here in the US.
yeah, but before you got to your children, I mean, based on your cultural upbringing, how did it influence your view on motherhood and whether you chose to have children and you becoming a parent? Because I think you've answered your how you decided to raise your kids, but because
Which is
you said earlier, I think there are some similarities to myself where I wasn't sure if I wanted to have children at one point in time. I was like, I'm all for children's rights. I'm all for taking the rights to provide better education for children, better access to after school programs and all the good stuff for children. But me personally, I don't want kids.
I know that.
At one point in
Although
time.
you have one.
And that's why there were people who were surprised because I didn't post a lot of stuff on Facebook. It was just baby shower, and then 2 weeks later Clara arrived, and there were people who were like, "Man, you hit the baby better than Beyonce!" Like, wow, was it this? Did you steal somebody's baby? That kind of thing. So, based on my cultural upbringing, that's not that's I'm like an abnormally because people who come from my background who were raised in the same culture, they're like, well, as soon as the baby is coming, you start announcing, hey, except if you are superstitious and you are afraid that, something evil might happen or the baby, you might lose the pregnancy, then that's when you keep quiet. But, by the stage where I was at, when we had Clara, I was like, the baby is coming. My baby, I love the baby. It don't matter. So that was me then. So, but for you, I'm just trying to gauge, like based on your cultural upbringing, how did you approach, how did that affect you choosing to have children? Was there any change and all
No,
that?
I'm an only child from my
Mm-hmm.
mom, and then my dad's previous marriage, before he met my mom, so I have two half siblings. He had 2 kids. But I grew up by myself. But then again, and now I have 3 kids, right? But then, no, I always wanted children, at least 1 to 2, and I kind of was also okay when I had 2, and then there was that third one just flying in with the stork,
From the
right?
stork, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it's just really that kind of anything I did as a child was okay. And that was not only because I was an only child. I think it would have been the same way if I was, had siblings. But my parents always told me, if you want to become work in sanitation and clean up garbage, that's fine. As long as you're happy, whatever you do, we're fine with that. So that really influenced me going the way I want to go, and that's really what I want to carry into for my children.
Okay.
It has more of a philosophical generational thing with with having children and education and so on and so forth. And it's not only the education in school, right? It's that
No, the
that
education
kind
is
of
not limited to just
education you
school.
just
Yeah.
get in between that kind of thrives you and jumps to the next generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So what about you,
Yes, I
Bertha?
guess. Yeah. So I'm from Ecuador, and so in Ecuador we grew up like in your household, so you don't have your grandparents or your cousins living in the same household. However, they live in the same city.
Mm-hmm.
So we was used to go to my grandma's house or to my cousin's house, and so that is something that I really miss because here it's just Astrid, me, and Edgar,
Yeah.
nobody else. So I really really miss the fact that we don't have any social structure, So it's really hard because like it was really I have like we're three kids, So I'm the middle kid, so it was always fun to have like meeting with the cousins, being with you, like even though like I will fight so much with my sister, I miss her so much, and my brother, I miss him a lot. So, and I also see that all my nephews, everybody has kids over there, so like I see how much like all the pictures of the family meetings. So I really feel like Edgar is missing that part, and it's a little sad for me to see, like we're trying to give him the best like in the US, and that's why I think we are in Brooklyn, but at the same time we are missing all that family community that we don't have here. So I grew up with that, and also I grew up a little pamper, so it's something that I also kind of miss, the convenience of being pampered, of like somebody else like picking up your stuff, which we don't have that. Having a maid, having a cook, having a chauffeur. I am the maid and the cook. I'm the chauffeur. I'm everywhere.
And it sounds like those are expensive things to have, but I understand we're similar in Africa. Like those are just the conveniences of life, and it wasn't a break the bank scenario. It's just what all families had. I mean, my maid had a babysitter, it's that level. You know what I mean? She would come and clean the house, and then somebody's looking after her child where she lives.
Yeah,
It was just something. It was just part of the culture and something we did.
Yeah. So it's not like
to-
like if you have those things here, you are like filthy rich.
Oh, yeah.
Right. You would have to be here.
Yeah.
I feel so blessed to have that cleaning lady once
Yeah.
a week.
A lot of families have like cleaning ladies,
Yeah.
especially at 321. When you talk to other families, they all have cleaning ladies, babysitters, different nannies. It's not that far.
Yeah, but for you to be able to afford that here, it's
expensive.
You're in a different
the
bracket.
babysitter.
The bracket
I've
is,
barely done the
is
babysitter.
Babysitting can
Yeah,
have like
it's
$2,000-$3,000 a month.
Like-
It's a lot of money.
That's if you
know.
get a nanny,
the,
right?
the
Yeah.
bracket.
But that's what we
was
had,
in when
you
we
know.
could
Yeah.
afford
We
that.
had a nanny that was living in
We're just
our
we're
house,
just
you
barely
know.
in the middle class. back in
Totally,
Nigeria,
totally
so,
agree.
yeah.
On the other hand, I mean, spending time with your kids is even more expensive, right? Like in terms
yeah.
of value. So you kind of also choose. I think if you want to get somebody to pick up after your kids or yourself or whatever, you could get that. I think you can get anything you want to. You just need to want to do it. So if you want to create your like parts of your home or how you grew up, you can do that totally.
Yeah, but the one thing you can't replace,
It's
which
the
I understand,
family.
is the family.
It's the
because
family. You cannot replace
I struggle
that.
with that as a mom here,
Because
definitely.
here you
Create
are by
yourself a new
yourself.
family.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
but
the
it's not the
community is not the
same.
same.
It's not the same because like you grew up with like certain values from your culture,
Yeah.
and you know even like the people that I meet that are like
But also
you know,
people
like,
who have a history about you
yeah.
and your life. Like I got really sad one time when my kid was 5. I struggled with this when I was an early mom. And I got really sad once because I was looking back at our photographs and I saw that at every single birthday party, there were different faces, different kids, different families.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are we building here? Where's the community in this, you know? And I really struggled with that. And my brother, meanwhile, is posting pictures with him and his kids, and they're in Kenya, and they've got birthday parties, and my parents are there, and my uncles are there, and their cousins are there.
Yeah, and that's
You
the
know,
same
and-
it has
And
it
I
happens
understand
to me.
what that means. But
You know.
like she said, once you start embracing what you have here as your family, it gets easier. It
I
takes
also
time,
think it's
though,
probably
to get to
different
that point.
because in Switzerland you're not so much in your family structure
Yeah.
as probably both of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be that because like I know other people's it's kind of like it's okay. For us, it's kind of like we really miss the family, and it's also from both sides. Like my husband is from India, so it's not like we can have family. Like I'm married with somebody from here that we can go and see them
Right.
now and then, and he also missed tremendously. Like that our kids are not, with his cousins or his grandmas, and so
What
it's a
helped
little
me
bit-
with that, the hurt. I understand the hurt, but what helped me with that is that hurt is mine. It's not my children's. I used to carry that pain for my kids and feel sad for them. And I'm like, they're missing out and they're growing up like this, and I'm so sad for them. They don't know any different.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
they're happy to play with their kids at the park and go to the playground, and they're happy to do their sport and go to their school and meet their teachers and friends. And
That's true.
their
Like
life
maybe
is
because
good.
my kid's still little,
Yeah.
he's 3, so it's like, like I don't like I see a lot of kids that are always, Edgar, he has a lot of fans, a lot of girls that are like, Edgar, you're here, but Edgar like doesn't even look at them,
Is he cute? He must be really cute as
Yeah,
well.
he's really
Does
cute.
he have the long
He sounds- he
eyelashes?
sounds so-
Long
The mixed race
eyelashes.
kids have those long
Yes.
eyelashes. They're so cute.
But I don't see him like go looking back at the girls. He's like, okay,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
He knows he's getting all the attention.
I also think it's going to get better once you get into a school where you actually start to volunteer and organize events where you can bring your own culture in and so on and so forth. I think
Yeah.
it's because it just started with 3K. Once you get into it, took me actually until now, just school wise, to actually find my people,
Yeah.
and then it starts to just rappel up with
Yeah, because
thing
sometimes
after thing
you'll
after thing.
your kid will have friends, and then you won't like the parents.
Yeah.
And then you'll meet parents. You'll meet parents who you like, and then
I was going to ask that question. Because
you'll meet parents who you like, and then your kid doesn't necessarily like that kid. You're like, damn it, why can't you just like this guy so I can hang
Yeah.
out with this mom?
it's,
Absolutely.
I've had that too.
Interesting.
You guys have touched on some of this, but I still have to ask this question. The second question that Beatrice sent. And so, what aspects of your cultural background do you intend to pass down to your children? And, what traditions or beliefs do you hope they will outgrow or reject?
That's interesting. The outgrow and reject part. Immediately, my mind goes to arranged marriage.
Aye.
Not that I was ever forced into that, but my cousins had that scenario. That's something that was deep in the Indian culture there in Kenya. Luckily, my family, of course, they were much more open-minded about that. That's something that we would definitely lose, and happily, But my kids have, they've grown up American. They've grown up, I think they would grow up very similarly in Kenya as well, just because of my personality and who I am. I'm a very open-minded person. I'm a free spirit, and they would grow up the same way, even if we did grow up back home in Kenya. But what we would keep is definitely things like have a spiritual path. They do go to church. They're raised Catholic. They know about my background as well, which is Sikh Muslim. So we're a multi-faith family. And they can choose their path, and it doesn't even have to be one of those. It can be anything. If Zach says one day, "Oh, I want to become a Buddhist," I'm like, "Okay, go for it." Or Jason comes up, he's like, "I'm going to be Jewish. My name's Jewish anyway." I'm like, "Okay, sure, yeah, become a Jew. It's fine. Just have a spiritual connection, have a spiritual path, have something that'll ground you, and then that gives you community too. I think,
Yeah.
especially if you go to a different country, you're on your own, you're missing family. You can go to church, or you can go to the temple, and you can, connect with people there, and you can have a sense of belonging, a place where you can go and find peace, no matter how hard things get. And I think that is something that I would continue for them, and I would want them to continue in their own traditions with their children and their families too. Yeah.
So I guess like for us, like it's funny because like you talk about religion. So we're also like I'm Catholic, raised Catholic. Ashwin is Hindu, but if you ask him, he's kind of like I'm Hindu because I'm from India, but it
Doesn't
really
know-
doesn't
doesn't
matter.
know much about it or-
no,
or
oh no,
pursue
no,
it.
he knows. He knows
Yeah.
all the he knows about everything.
He knows everything.
He knows everything, but he doesn't practice.
Right.
If you
That's why I'm laughing.
Right.
like if
I
he
should-
knows
I
the
should.
practice,
Yeah.
so like I remember when I met him, he was like an atheist, so
Yeah.
so it's really funny because like I was raised in a really conservative Catholic mindset. So then I go and like like if you're dating someone and that person is like evangelist, they're like, oh no, like big deal, because you're dating, even though they're both Christians. They're like, no, against evangelists. And I'm here marrying a Hindu who's an atheist,
Right.
So it's
Right.
kind of like, it's kind of funny. But I think, like living in New York and like kind of like seeing like the differences, like it's about spirituality. I think when I met my family in India, it was really nice to see how we connected spiritually. So we do want to kind of like pass that to Edgar. He is baptized Catholic, but we also went to India and they did like a special ceremony for him. So it's like, I do want to like pass the spirituality that you can have in both families. So, at the end of the day, yes, he can choose whatever he wants. Like he doesn't have to be Catholic. However, like I do have the bias that I would like him to be Catholic. But you have to like.
But I think,
what
I think
do
being
like
Catholic is an easier thing to pursue here in Brooklyn than it is to, pursue Hinduism. Or, if I decided to go and take the boys and take them to the Sikh temple, that's much harder. It's not as accessible. Churches are everywhere. Brooklyn's kind of the borough of churches, so it's,
Yeah.
it's much easier to do here.
This neighborhood alone, how many churches?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think like the part that I would like to kind of like get over, it's like my country is kind of like really close-minded, and you don't get it until you get out of the country how close-minded we can be in Ecuador. So I want him to, and I'm sure like, living here, he's able like not to be like so like this has to be red. If it's like pink, that's it, we're done. So that part I wanna like kind of rejecting of my culture. And I think it's this like, it's funny because like even though India and Ecuador is so far, we are so similar in so many things. And if you ask that to Ashwin, he will say exactly the same.
I think the only place you guys differ is on time. The way Ashwin has described time, the time concept, I think that's the only difference. But everything else that you just said, it's literally, you can throw Nigeria in the mix too. We're on the same boat with Ecuador and India, including the spirituality too. But that's a different topic for another day. But yes, Murielle.
Yeah, so similar actually. I first thought I don't even know what I would not want them to carry from my background or my upbringing, because I just was very, very, very blessed to have such a strong mother who, like, if you guys meet my mother, you see why I am how I am, and it totally everything makes sense. So she was just really, she paved this path. She broke generational trauma with therapy and just lots of spiritual ceremonies where she has been taking herself back into her like very early childhood, and she was left alone home, and she had lots of trauma experiences, and she was able to break that for me. So I'm forever grateful. So that being said, I'm like, yeah, how I grew up was just great. So I want my children to experience all of this. One thing I maybe do a little different, my mom always kind of made sure I don't get too many plastic toys and like really, Kinderhouse, really extremely mindful. She was very mindful with what she bought me. My kids, they can have whatever they want. Because now when I go to a store, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this cute doll, this and that. And I still want to buy it. And I don't want my kids to have this. I want them to be fully done with that when they're my age, obviously. But then when you said the closed-mindedness, Switzerland is no different. Swiss people are very close-minded. All these mountains make them not see any further. We call it Eurocentristic because it's something that is kind of European wide, but Swiss people, they are so close-minded. It's you
With all the
cannot
neutrality?
you can absolutely you cannot, because they're so neutral too, right? You cannot discuss things with them
Oh,
because
no.
they're like, that's how it is and that's how we do it and that's the best way to do it, obviously, because
You
we
know
never
what?
have
That
gotten into
makes
war
sense. That
with
makes
anyone.
sense. Now, I just thought about your national team, the Swiss national team, the soccer national team.
Uh-huh.
And, there was at the 2018 World Cup. I need to go delete some of those on Facebook because I used to write a lot of crazy stuff. But I made this joke then that Switzerland is the where you have United Nations, you have a whole lot of refugee,
Nestle
UNESCO, all of them.
headquarters, all the pharmaceutical industry
But
headquarters are sitting there in the mountains.
so
You have
they should have
Davos.
had a diverse national team for a long, long time. And what you said just proved that it was still because they've had black people playing there, they've had people of color in their leagues for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Even coaches before the major, the bigger leagues. Switzerland has had a lot more diversity, but it was never reflected in their national team until 2018, and then 2022, their team now look blacker than England, and people are like, "Wait, where does black people come from?" I'm like, "They've always been there. they just forgot to." So it just seemed like we're not. No, we're not. But it's like, oh, we can't win anymore. Okay, let's start using the people that we have. We've always had here, and the people started thinking that, they started shipping. No. I was like, oh no, they always had them there.
They've
So
always been there.
we were joking about this in 2018, and so it made sense that they were like, yeah, no, we're not going to open we're not going to diversify now. No, we just really stick to what we've always been using right from time.
Exactly.
Even if we keep failing and failing and
Yeah.
failing and failing and
Because
failing.
we just did it that way. It's sickening.
Yeah,
That's
so-
why I left. That's because you cannot have conversations with people like this, right? You could tell them, listen, you could win the World Cup if you would actually get these guys on your team, right? But they're like, no, we always did it that way. Why would we? There's no point. There's no point discussing things with Swiss people because you're not going anywhere. So I actually already broke that part because we're here in Brooklyn and my kids are so not Swiss. They're just so not Swiss. They like it. My middle son, he loves France and he loves Italy. He doesn't like
no.
Switzerland. They just like
No,
the
don't do
surroundings
that.
like I do. I like the Swiss surroundings too because it's much more international. And then again, yeah, they're little Americans and they're fine with that. I mean, their dad is Trinidadian. It's good. Yeah.
Just tell him to stop supporting France. That's all. Nah, I just had to throw my little thing in there. It's all good. I'm messing with him. So before I move on to the next big discussion question, one quick question I have to ask. I did not actually write this one down. I'm guessing with Murielle, I might know the answer from Murielle. But for everybody, who do you consider the most who do you consider the most mother figure in your life? Because I think for men, we always get this question: who is the most father-like figure in your life? And it took me until just this year. The person who had been claiming was the person I used to call my father-like figure was actually not the person. It was just recently I actually finally admitted that it was actually a woman who was the person who I had identified with the most as a father-like figure to me. So, who do you consider to be your most mother-like figure in your life?
Like my mom.
Well,
Yeah.
hey, it can be your mom. That's fine. I know most people go to their mom, but why I ask this question now is because the first time I was asked about the father-like figure, I said the first thing that came to my mind, and then I don't know. The question kept repeating in my head for months afterwards until the day it seemed like I was finally ready to say the right answer, and that's why
That's great.
it dawned on me like, oh yeah, the first answer I said was not. It was just what I wanted to say that day. So I'm not saying you're wrong. There's no right or wrong answer. That's the point I'm making. And for people listening, feel free to let me know. You know how to get in touch with me. Hit the contact button or the microphone on www.whitelabelamerican.com. Let me know who do you consider your mother-like figure. And we also have people who grew up without parents. We have orphans out there. So yes, so everyone has a different person in their life who they consider uh, their most mother-like figure in
Same
their
goes
life.
with the
So
father figure. Yeah.
yeah, when we get to Father's Day, well, don't worry about that. Father's Day episode will come up.
Well, then again, you go to, you said it was
So
a woman, right?
yeah. But
So
I just had to point that out because
she may have been a mother and the father. So that goes back to actually honoring the woman, right?
yeah. So yeah. So for you, Preet.
I mean, I'm gonna go with the cookie cutter. Yes, it's my mom because, but I haven't spoken about her yet, and of course, it's a Mother's Day episode, and I should, and I feel like this is the perfect time to do that, to bring her into the conversation because she's a very unique woman. Again, she was also a free spirit. She grew up in a very traditional Muslim, environment, but her dad passed away when she was quite young. She was about 11 years old, and then after that, she was sort of raised kind of by her uncle. She went through, some abusive relationships with some aunts who were very difficult on her and treated her like she didn't belong in the family. And well, physically, they were abusive of her as well too. So, talking about breaking generational trauma, she definitely did that for us as well,
Amazing.
And when she moved to Nairobi, she educated herself. She taught herself English. She found basically a Catholic church with a school attached to it, and she was kind of raised by nuns, and she lived in that world for a while, and that's why I have this very big comfort zone with the Catholic world as well. And when I met my husband, I was very comfortable in church and everything. But she met my dad at University of Nairobi when she was studying there, and he used to come and teach karate. He was deep into the karate world. And she became one of his students and fell in love with him. And he's Sikh, she's Muslim. And Sikh and Muslim together is like taboo. It's a big deal, especially back then. Her family would have they wanted to ostracize her. They did not accept her. My dad's family was not really into it. His brothers were okay with it. So they eloped to get married. And so she's definitely she's my champion. She's my warrior in some ways. And when I met my husband, he's black. I grew up in Kenya, but it was very difficult for my family in the beginning to accept that. My mom was fine from day one, of course. She's always been my champion. And my dad struggled with it. He sort of, the first, 6 months, he kind of just shut me out when I told him about who I was dating. He was like, no, didn't want to talk to me, nothing. So I felt like I was going down my mom's path. I was going to have to leave my family behind and sort of elope and marry this man. And eventually my dad came round for different reasons. And they came on board with everything. But she is definitely this woman who's very strong personality, worked hard, didn't just sit at home, worked, had a job. When my dad's business was not doing that great, she carried things herself through the family, and she educated herself. And she will basically walk into any room and be comfortable and at ease. And she can walk into any kitchen and cook up a storm. She's one of these well-rounded individuals that can do everything, So she's definitely the mother figure in my life. But if I think further, of course, there's aunts that come into play and grandmothers that come into play. And I was very much raised with that concept of like it takes a village, and there were all these other women that have supported me in my life, and some of them even my older cousins and things. So I've been fortunate enough to have that in my life. Sad that I don't have it here, like you would understand. But lucky that that's always been there in me, and it's always something I can fall back and go to. Yeah.
It's funny because I'm still like, I told you it's my mom, my mother figure, of course. And I love my childhood in Ecuador. I love, being with my parents. And my mom was there with us. Like she was a professor at the university in Ecuador, and she will work part-time. So we go to school, she goes to school.
Okay.
So we came back, she was there, and she would like just make sure everything was going fine. And she tried, like, we're not very into exercise, so she tried to put us in all the sports like basket, kung fu, tennis. She tried everything. We just don't have the gene, we were so bad. But she tried, and and she's always been like kind of like our champion, our cheerleader. and I'm still like Edgar gets sick. I have my phone. I call my mom. Mom, he has a fever. Oh, what he has like a stomach, tummy ache. I'm still calling my mom every time, trying to figure out, what to do. So, yes, she's of course my mother figure. I'm still like when I was pregnant, she came when Edgar was like, when I was gonna get birth, and it was funny because like I have an aunt that lives in Cleveland, so she went to visit my aunt, her sister, for like a few days before I was gonna have my baby, and Edgar came 10 days earlier.
Oh.
So I'm calling Cleveland saying, Mom, I'm into labor. And she took the first plane and just came back, to see Edgar. And she was with me for the first month, And, like she will wake up in the middle of the night to help me with Edgar. So I'm still like, I'm far away, but I'm still like, I need my mom,
Mommy's
So
child.
yeah, and I love her. But of course, I also have other people that I consider that also have like a mother figure in me, like my grandmom, my aunt, the one that lives in Cleveland. She never have any kids, so that's why we are so close to her. So. But yeah, so it's like like it they're so important. I think our mother figure is so important. I think it doesn't matter what age you are, you still need them. You'll never you always need them. They're there for you.
I think that also speaks to community because when you have that's where the community comes
Yeah.
in. Because when you have a
Totally.
community, if your mom is not there, someone easily steps in and plays the role of the mother figure and
Totally.
stands in for you. So with your mom not being nearby, you have your aunt, you have the other aunties, and so yeah.
So it's interesting. My mom was there for my first born, for Imani, and then she couldn't come. No, she was actually there also. She was with Imani while I was giving birth to Cyan. My husband was there with Cyan. He was no good. So the third one, my mom actually couldn't come for some reason. I can't remember why. She wasn't there, and or maybe she came later. My husband had to stay with the kids. My friend, one of the greatest and longest kinderhouse teachers, Katja, was there. So that's where the community comes in. And growing up, of course, my mom, not of course, but my mom, listening to me before, my mom is my mother figure that has been guiding me through life. Growing up, I always saw her with lots of female friends. She had this community of female people she chose to kind of be her family, right? Versus actually family. So I really, growing up, see that I can do the same thing here. I don't really, that's my husband's family. I don't like them too much. I kind of just got them all far away from us, which is good. But I I have my people here, which are mainly female, who are there, and we're there for each other. And I only kind of realized this now that I'm doing the same thing as I actually saw growing up.
Hi, everyone. If you're new to the podcast or a returning listener and you enjoy what we are doing here, did you know that you could enjoy more of our content and also support our work via Patreon? For as little as $3 per month, you get access to loads of bonus content that you'll find nowhere and be the first to the latest news. Don't miss out. Go to patreon.com/White Label American Pod or just search for White Label American Podcast on Patreon. Patreon. I've heard this before that it's not about what we tell the kids, it's about
Totally.
what we do,
Yeah.
what they see us doing.
Totally. Absolutely.
And that's another example
Yeah.
of it. And I know it's not about me. I'm not the mother, so don't. But
That's a
I'm still
powerful
held
thing as
to
well
account,
she gave
but
you. Like
you know,
to make her own
yeah.
community and have her own friendships and build that herself, choose her and build her own family. That's very empowering, and that's something, it's a gift that you can give your kids, and they can do that no matter where they are and where they end up in life.
And that's a good gift.
It's very powerful.
That's
yeah.
a good gift to give
Mm-hmm.
them. And I think I may have said this to Ashwin before. I think it was on his second appearance. When we were making a joke about him not having, he said he doesn't have American friends, and I said, I'll get you American friends. So I've lived in a few states and cities, but it's not easy when you don't get to stay somewhere for long. But you try to create community, but it's not even like I'm thinking about it. And of course, you get bonds. It's like you test, and but you make the attempt, and it's not like you're thinking about it, but you still make the attempt. And I think with Clara coming into our lives, that's when it's like, okay, now I'm more serious about doing this community thing. Who do I want to be in my life? And this, I believe in community and I believe in village, but I don't want it to be like for like what I went through, because what I went through, I don't want other kids to go through that, to be honest. But if I can pick the good that I went through, that I faced, then I will give them the good. So it's kind of like trying to recreate that without the baggages that the burdens that I went through. So that's kind of like what I'm doing, but it's kind of like building a village, but it's difficult. If you're doing it like my style, it's difficult. So it's hit and miss. Yeah, you think you've connected with this family, and then all of a sudden they just stop showing up to birthdays or don't text messages, and then one day you go to the park and you see them there and it's awkward. You're staring at each other from across, like, okay, I don't know why you just stopped showing up to my house. All right, well, I know how to move on though. It's not like I was in a relationship. I wasn't dating you, so I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to push it. So but if my kid runs up to play with your kid, I'm like, dang it, now I have to. Like, do I start a conversation now? Nah, I'm not gonna talk to you anyway. I'm just gonna act like you saw me, because I was staring at you. We're staring at each other, and it's like we're doing that movie thing where we are both staring at each other. It's like, so we're not gonna talk. No, okay, all right then. Our kids will just play, and we're just standing there watching each other. Okay, so it's weird, but
Well,
you go through that sometimes, and with some people it works, some people it doesn't. So I think I think I've made up where I am now. I'm like, it's gonna work for some people, it's not gonna work. But apparently, I've been doing some community building when I was single, because there's some people who have been showing up since Clara came on. They've been like some of the day ones apparently, and I'm like, yeah, I didn't realize that. That's how apparently I was actually doing community building by bringing you into my life. And those guys are like, yeah, let me know anytime you need babysitting or something like that, and we'll come through. And I'm like, oh, why? How did you ever come into my life? Oh,
love that.
so
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like you, for some of us who we've moved from, we've had to move. Life has made us move from where we're born, from our countries and continents of origin, to another place, and you're not in a place where it's like you have a large community of people who are of your same ethnic group, of your ethnicity, and or of origin, or religion, or whatever. You get to be given this chance to construct your own thing in your own way, and it's an experiment that I'm trying right now, seeing how it works. I'm in the garden phase right now, so we'll see.
As soon as the kids get a little older, they start to realize the same thing. So while Clara still may play with these kids whose parents are just staring at you,
Yeah,
the older kids are their parents' kids, right?
yeah,
So this will show through, and Clara will see that too. So the older, I always say that, because I'm so thankful I'm out of this rough phase of like this first 5 years. everything kind of starts to fall into place. Yeah, I get it. You're in the garden, but you're at the end. The
Yes,
flowers
I'm
will
glad.
show up.
I'm so glad.
They will show up.
And
for
one day
sure.
you will be waking her up. She won't be waking you up. It comes.
Oh.
Comes
Oh
too.
yeah, it definitely comes. That's right. That's so funny. Oh my gosh, that's right.
Wow. So, let me see. I have 2 questions from my patrons. Let me see, which one should I do? Okay, let me take Nena's question first. Sarah. But that doesn't mean both of you join Patreon at the same time, so don't come after me. You're both important to me, and I love both of you. So, yes, there's love for everybody.
Go by alphabet.
Okay, well, that's
True.
okay. So,
Best thing
Nena
to do.
comes first. too.
Switzerland's talking, see?
Of course.
Keeping the peace, staying neutral.
Stay neutral. We love all of you.
Okay, so fellow immigrant, mom, and patron, Nena wants to know, how do you go about supporting your child's aspirations even if they conflict with your own expectations?
Oh, you cannot. You have to. You have to put yourself to the back. I mean, you cannot tell them what to do. They're Americans.
Good point.
We're in a free country here.
I mean, it depends. Does my son say he wants to become a professional drug dealer? Then we're talking.
for it.
We're having words.
Let's
you know?
make money.
Well, it depends on what kind of drugs.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
That-
Maybe.
Pharmaceutical
Is it
There might be a
Is it
legal.
jobs?
There might be a
Some
legal
legal jobs.
loophole. isn't
right?
there?
Is it a legal dispensary? Fine, that's different. Is
Okay.
it meth? Are you gonna cook meth? Okay.
Okay.
Now we're
Not in
having
my
words.
kitchen.
Now we're having words. But if it's like I want to become a professional ballet dancer, yeah, go for it. I mean, I never thought you'd do that. You know, you seem like a real strong male boy's boy, but if that's where your heart is, go for it and succeed. Whatever it is you do, as long as you're successful and you do well, I'm with it. I'll support it. I may not love it in the beginning, but I'll back off and give them space. Trying to think of an example. So right now he's very into hip hop and contemporary hip hop, which I like old school. You know, I come from old school. I love up to the 90s, mid 90s. I'm good with that. But
When we
what
look
they
at the
listen to
stuff.
now is like my husband and his best friend. They call it mumble rap.
Yeah, it is mumble
It's
rap.
mumble
That's
rap.
That's what it's called.
And most of it's about sex and relationships and having sex and having drugs. You know, most of it's about that.
Well-
It used to be stories about the street. I mean, that was there. That narrative was there in hip hop always. But I feel that narrative has taken over most of it, you know, and we don't have like any. There's not much woke hip hop happening now. There is some, but there isn't that much going on. And so we don't see eye to eye with that hip hop world, really. Raphael's like, okay, Preet, I'm gonna school you. I can see him.
No. I try to play legal counsel for some of
Legal
for the
counsel.
youths, but
I
get it though because
What's that? That's like
I've-
Travis Scott and stuff like this, right?
Stuff, yeah,
Lil Uzi and all that kind of weird
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
Very strange.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
very,
big little baby, big baby, giant
very
baby,
devilish.
all the
too.
babies.
I find this so strange. Yeah.
So that kind of stuff. So
Well,
I'm like,
now-
okay,
now I
that's
know
your
I'm in-
thing,
I'm with
and I
moms
know how
now.
much joy your music gives you because I was I mean, Nairobi. Growing up there, everybody was pop, you know, and we all had those now whatever came out, you know, and it was all the pop music. I went deep into metal and you know,
Ooh.
80s hair metal,
That's the
So
devil.
funny. I had
Guns
this
N'
phase
Roses,
too. That's so
AC/DC, and I didn't even know what a goth was, but I was a goth. I used to
What you
dye.
call the devil?
I dye my hair black, and it's black. It was pretty black anyway. I used to wear black nails, red nail polish, and I had no idea what a goth was. But I was goth in Nairobi, of all places. So I'm like, Zach, go for it. Do your thing. You're into it. I'm okay with it. But think about the messages that you're hearing. Think about whether that's what you represent in the world. If it's just music for the sake of music and you're not following the words and everything, fine. But if you're going to disrespect women, that's an issue. You need to think about how women are represented in hip hop. I've always had an issue with that. It's always been difficult. There aren't enough female voices in hip hop. There never have been. And I don't know if there ever will be, to be honest, sadly. That's a big one for me. Another one is how, you know, just there's this sort of lack of representation for anybody old in hip hop. Like nobody above the age of 40 exists in that world, you know? Like You're dead.
Hip
Might
hop
as well
just
be
turned
dead at
50
that
this
point.
year. Hip hop just celebrated its 50th anniversary this
Yeah.
year.
But
so-
these kids don't know what we were listening
No, I mean,
to.
I
They
asked him
just
if he
don't.
wanted
They
to
have no
come to
clue.
Rock the Bells Festival, which is going to happen in June at Barclays Center with LL Cool J, Queen Latifah, all the old school hip hop heads, even Rakim,
Oh,
Method
that's
Man.
good. Yeah.
So I'm definitely going for that. And I was like, why didn't you come for this? This is my hip hop, He's like, oh. So that's what he's like, that's boring, Mom. I'm like, okay. He's like, it's all synthesizers and synth beats, and I'm like, well, okay.
Very different frequency.
That's
they're
an
on.
example of where we don't see eye to eye, but he gives him passion, makes him happy. That's what he likes to do, and we enable him in some ways. He has his Spotify account, we pay for it and that kind of stuff. So yeah, we support him, and we buy him the clothes that he likes. The
It's funny because
sneakers.
Edgar is also into hip hop. So I love like the music that he like. I love like hip like Chick West. He likes that, and he like Kendrick Lamar. So we call that
Oh.
baby
Yeah.
music,
Yeah.
because Edgar likes it. So like all of these,
He
like
got taste.
That's better than Lil Uzi for
That-
sure.
It is. Kendrick Lamar, yeah, I can sit with that.
You haven't seen
can sit
Lil
with that.
Uzi yet.
yeah, no, like he has like really really good taste of
Yeah,
in
that's
music,
awesome.
So yeah, like, but he also is super physical. He climbs, he runs, and Ashley and I were both PhDs, and we're not the best physical activities. So I feel like we have to train in order to be with him. So I don't know, whatever makes him happy, we're happy. And if he wants to run a marathon, even though like I ran one block and I'm dying, whatever makes him happy and whatever we can empower him, we'll do for Edgar.
Yeah, my son tested me once, and he was asking a question, and I was like, well, is this coming from your heart, or are you just trying to test and see what kind of a mom I am? And he's like, Mom, what if I decided I was gay? I was like, okay, well, I need to meet them. I need to meet their family, their parents. Where do you guys want to go? You want to go to cinema? It's like, he was completely taken back by that. He's like, slow down. There's no wedding. I'm like, okay, it's fine. So he just wanted to see how I'd react to it. I'm
You
like,
see, that's the
just be happy,
that's the type of that's where you get the answer, the one we answer like you think I was born yesterday.
Exactly.
That's
My
that's
son
when
and
I
I
give you
say
the
that to each
answer.
other, the younger one, all the time, because he tries to school me, and I'm like, I point at him and I poke in his belly. I'm like, born yesterday, and I point at me and I was like, not born yesterday, and then he starts doing the same thing.
That is so cute.
Oh, these kids. Yep, they will test you. They will test you. But yeah. I'll come back to the messages though. I have a question that ties into that. Or something I was watching on, I think, Vice, and yeah. But I'll come back to that. Let me knock out the Patreon questions so I don't forget them. Where is Sarah's question? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I get a question from Sarah. So, um, fellow immigrant mom and patron Sarah asks, how do you balance your career and motherhood while still making time for self care? As immigrant mothers, many of you prioritize your families above all else, often neglecting your own needs in the process. How can okay? She wrote it in her own words, so I should have rephrased it. But how can women find a way to take care of themselves while still fulfilling their responsibilities?
First, we need to realize what we need and that we need it. Well, I guess the other way around, that we need it and then what we need. But that's, well, with me, at some point, I started to have this ringing in my ears. And then you start to feel dizzy and it just all comes down to you. And you're like, okay, I think I need acupuncture. So that's how it goes. And then you just have to make time. If you did not make time before, the time will come where you have to make time. And again, you can do whatever you want to in your life. You just have to do it, right? You have to make time to do it. You have to want to do it. And I'm also very, very blessed to have a very flexible schedule. Flexible schedule also means that you're kind of working all the time, and not always really, but then again, all the time. but yeah, I mean, I go to acupuncture. I go to regular. I have a massage therapist. I make time for me to go shop. Although I have a 12-year-old who likes to interfere with that, and always is like, "Oh, mom, can I come?" So it's not always self time, but it's also fun to then have time with them alone, which I also think is important for moms with multiple kids, right?
Yeah,
To do things,
one-on-one,
yeah, with them
definitely.
alone. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, this is something I'm guilty of, is not being able to balance all of it. So in the beginning, I saw how women raise their kids here in New York, and I went to the daycare. I was reviewing places when I was pregnant. What were we going to do next once the baby comes? What's the plan? And I was working at the time, and I would see women with 3-month-old babies handing them off to strangers and then going to work for 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever it was. And I knew I'm not going to do that. That's not the kind of mom I'm going to be. I can't. First of all, I'd be heartbroken. I'm not going to be able to hand off like a tiny being to somebody else and just step away from them. So I am guilty of putting my career on hold to be a mom. And I told my husband, when I have an infant, I'm going to stop working, and I'm not going to work until they're about 8, 9 months old. I'm going to, especially while I'm breastfeeding, I'm going to be with them the whole time. And so he was supportive of that. He understood that. We had to tighten the belt on things. I'm not traveling to Kenya and stuff as much. You know how expensive that flight can be. So, of course, my career took, it took a back seat, and I didn't progress as quickly as I would have liked to in my career. I'm now working with people who are probably in their late 30s. I'm almost 50 in a couple of years, so the things like that. But I'm okay. I have no pride about that. I don't feel bad. And I have somebody who's younger than me, who's my, senior career-wise. I'm fine with that. I'm very comfortable with that. And I'm happy that I was able to get back into it. The last few years, I was working part-time. I've just started working full-time now since January. So the last 4 years I was working part-time. So if you can have that leeway to have a flexible schedule and make space for yourself and your family and your kids, that's great. You just have to find your path and what works well with you. Some other mothers hearing this out there might be like, no, I could never give up my career. And that's fine. That's what's right for you. I think everybody's path is different, but you have to, like Murielle said, you have to identify what you need, right? And then make space for that to happen in your life. And acupuncture is something that I do. That's definitely something that I go for. And for me, Raphael, we've spoken about this before, is music. I have to go and listen to live music or go and listen to a DJ and dance. Dancing is very important for me, and that's something that fills me up. And it's not something I have to do every Sunday or every Saturday. I'm good with like once every 3 months. It fills me up, and it lasts me
That's
for a long
self-care.
time.
Totally.
Self-care
Yeah.
is not, it's not
Absolutely.
that you have to do it 24/7.
Yes.
But it's still self-care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So balance, what does that mean?
No,
I'm kidding.
Exactly.
You got us.
It's just scramble.
Yeah. No, especially like Edgar is a COVID baby, no? So we started, and actually was covered November. He was born in November 2019. So, like the first like 6, 8, 10 months, it was just us with the baby inside because nobody could leave, so is totally different experience, I think, from the people that have their babies when it was not COVID. So it was kind of hard. But then, like, I guess, like, so at that time we were not even thinking about daycare because everything was closed, so everything was us with the baby.
That was a big change.
Yeah, and then we were having a small company at the time, and it was kind of like really hard to do anything because you are also like afraid that you might die if you go out and get groceries and stuff like that. So it was pretty hard to do that, raising a small kid, a baby, and nobody here, and like we were calling our family, like, can we go to see you? No, you live in New York.
Oh my gosh.
It was really, really tough.
It was the best time to travel. If anybody had the balls to do it, it was the best freaking time to travel. The flights were empty. You
was-
got like
they
3
were-
seats to yourself. No one's messing with you. You're like, now
they
I'm in
were-
business class, bitches. Now.
Yeah, I was really cheap. Now it's
That
so
was cheap.
expensive.
That's right.
Yeah, but I guess like the way, like like now, like kind of like he gets older, and like a little bit of like he goes from 8 a.m. and he comes like 3:30 p.m. So now we're kind of like seeing how to balance a little
Back
bit
in
more.
business.
Yeah, more our life, because before that was really, really tough. But also like, I told you I'm from Ecuador, Ashwin is from India. So every time we go to Ecuador, we go like 1.5 months. We go to India 1.5 months. So I guess that's when we're able to like kind of breathe, and be like, okay, now I can make my nails done. And now I can go and like do something without like having Edgar, by my side all the time. But I think it's tough. I think it's really tough. But yes, you do need to make time for yourself, because otherwise, like as you said, time will come for you.
Mhm.
Like like you have like, especially if health wise, if you're having something that's related with your health, if you don't make time, you're gonna pay for that.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know. So it is important to find ways to self-care.
And that's not good for the kids.
Exactly. So your family will, by end of the day, benefit from that.
Yeah.
And you come back to them happier, wholer, more, more open to them, more receptive to them, less grumpy. I know I get a temper. I get grumpy when I don't get enough of my sort of breaks. And it's not, like I said, that break is not a daily thing. I haven't painted my nails in a very long time. When you said that, I was like, okay, hiding my nails now, sitting on my fingers.
No.
Oh, one thing I'll throw into self-care recommendations: therapy too. Therapy is also self-care that people should explore. It's also part of taking care of you. So, for the audience listening,
It's funny, my daughter had therapy or wanted to have therapy and then actually had therapy during like the last spring to now. She just stopped. And while she had therapy, I was like, actually, I think I need a therapist too. Yeah, but absolutely. I mean, this
Because of the
got her
questions
so
she'd
far.
come up with and things she was talking about.
Not really. It's just a therapist is somebody who you pay to listen to you, who also happens to have a background in something you don't have, right? Which is psychology, whatever, like human mind, neurology. There's just a benefit to it. I mean, if you talk to your friends, you're like, okay, everybody has problems, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
blah,
And
blah.
sometimes your
They're
friends'
throwing
Yeah.
things
problems will
in,
become your
whatever.
problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just a very different interaction versus you actually have a therapist, a person who you pay. Like when I'm talking to someone therapy-wise and I pay them, I don't want to hear their crap. I don't care. I don't care what's going on in their life. It's about me. So yeah, absolutely, totally agree. I haven't had a therapist yet, but yeah. And then
as
spirituality,
someone
right?
who uses therapy, I'm a good therapist. For me, the ones that I prefer tend to give you exercises that, you know, will get you to where you're supposed to be going to. That it's like when you have a headache and you take pain-killing medication. That's kind of how I see therapy, because there are different types of therapy. There are like even what do you call it? Like yoga is a form of therapy.
Yeah,
some of those
that's what I was gonna say. That's kind of my
yeah.
therapy zone, the yoga and stuff. But I understand what you mean by the steps, like cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yes.
I think that is sort of the most valuable, because I've been to a psychiatrist where you sit and you talk and blah blah blah, and I was going through some depression because I was really sick then, and it just, I don't know, I'd walk out feeling like I had more problems than less, and they'd ask questions and I'd be like, oh, this is shit, oh, that's fucked up, oh, that's messed up, excuse my French.
No, that's
We're
fine.
on HBO today.
You're allowed. Yes, it's HBO.
We're on HBO today. and so I don't know. I didn't feel like it was getting me anywhere. I didn't find solutions. I felt like I found more problems. So I think something that has steps is what I need, what I would need, and that would be more valuable for me. You know?
Yes. Final thing I'll say on the therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not a therapist. I'm a therapist. I'm a therapy advocate. I think many people always tend to forget that, when you try therapy, especially for mental health, wellness. Well, no, I don't say wellness because there are too many people taking advantage of that on this social media thing. But like I've had,
Gwyneth Paltrow.
I'm not saying names. I ain't got money to defend my podcast. But I accept donations, though. You can donate.
That was
Go
from Preet,
donate.
not Raphael.
Those are the views of Preet, not the views of white label American. Yes, because she sues. She sues. So I've had two therapists, who are immigrants, and they do great jobs. And on the podcast, and they specifically, well, one of them on social media, he's progressive, the progressive migrant. He specifically targets his clients are specifically immigrants.
Interesting.
And I also know someone I can't remember social media handle. She's a therapist, but I think she does. Mostly for. I know she talks mostly about kids of multi children who belong to who are multicultural.
Backgrounds.
Who have multicultural backgrounds. So, and I learn a lot from her. Well, I don't know why. I have to. I can't open. I have to open Instagram and then start looking for her right now.
Yeah,
But
I
I learn a
definitely
lot
want
from
that
her.
information too.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Sounds fascinating.
So there are therapists like that, and that's how I started knowing that, like the first time I did therapy was through the VA, Affairs, the Department of Veterans
Well,
Affairs,
that's a very different
and
background too. Yeah.
they sent me to a therapist. Like I had an outburst, one of my bad days, and I had an outburst, and the right person was listening to me and said, "Would you like to talk to somebody?"
Yeah.
And I was in the right mood because normally I would have said, "What the hell are you talking about?" And I said, "Okay." That's all I said. Okay, and they said that these are the options that we have. We can send you to NYU Langon, or you come in house. And I said, "Whatever. I don't care. I don't really care." And ended up that's how bad it was. I was really down, but on the outside I was performing fine, but inside I was really down, and I ended up going to the therapist that they offered me at NYU Lagon, and we connected. But I don't think, now that I look back, I think it was just where I was back then. That's how down I was. So I did that program for like 2 years. I could have, and then I was like, okay, I'm cured. I'm good. Bye. That's it. But for something like that, I should have moved on from that therapist to someone who was more of my culture, my background, who understood where I was coming from. And then that person could have walked with me. But I'm like, I'm cured. I drank 2 tablets. I'm good. Bye. And then so when the problems will start, is that later on I started feeling like I'm drowning again. But I could tell the signs were coming up. And this time I'm the one that reached out to them and said, okay, I'm feeling something. I don't know, I'm not going to do something crazy, but if I don't take care of it now, probably maybe 1 year's time, I'll do something crazy. And they were like, okay, these are the options that we have. So they had like group therapy, but it was during the pandemic. So you sit down in a group call, and I tried it. I'm not a spiritual person. No, I guess now I'm the black sheep now. I gotta reveal that. I'm not a spirit. I'm more on the atheist side, but the type who I believe in everybody's right to practice. As far as you don't tell me I must worship your God, but I collect offerings. Give me offerings. I'm there. I'm there. So but I participated in group therapy. I've done the art therapy where you do paintings. I've done the yoga. So I've tried a whole bunch of different therapies, and I've seen that many people just tried one and said it's bad. That's it. And then they go on social media and start making videos, and that's very dangerous and that's very problematic. And I wish people will stop doing that. It's very bad because a lot of people who I've talked to are not even aware that they have different options. So if you try one,
There's so many options
yeah,
out there, and you have to find what's right for you.
Exactly.
Like you said, you found somebody who understood your background and your culture. I think that's what I didn't have, and
Exactly.
and that put me off, and it hasn't taken me back into that traditional therapy world again. But I'm now, digging into it for my son for different reasons. He has anxiety, and
I can actually recommend you.
yeah, that would be
Something.
great. That would be great because he has anxiety. He's had it since he was young, but it became really bad in Kenya. We got stuck in the riots once in coming back from Naivasha to Nairobi, and he was 9, so he remembers all of it. He's 15 now, and that was difficult and very scary for him, and it can be a very jarring experience. So I feel like he has some PTSD in him.
Yeah, probably.
And he'll just get startled if I'm in the bathroom, for example, and he doesn't realize I'm there, I'm doing makeup, whatever, and he opens the door and he sees me there, and he's like, and then he's really shocked, and it takes him a while to like calm down, and his eyes are wide open, and I can see his heart is pounding because he just got shocked that I was there, know. So he definitely has some anxiety going on, and I'm taking my time and looking for the right thing, like you said. I need to find the right person for him, the right fit for him, and he's biracial as well, and he needs somebody who gets that, what it's like to be, Black Indian kid, and that's also something that's part of his identity and who he is, and that's something that somebody has to understand who's going to talk to him.
No, but I'm in therapy. I've been in therapy since COVID. Like for Ashwin and I don't know if Ashwin told you, but like in 2019 was like a really hard year because Ashwin dad's died in February, and then I was pregnant, and then my dad died in August.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I was 6 months pregnant. It was like, and he was not. He had a stroke. So it's not like my dad was sick. He had a stroke. Less than 24 hours, he was dead. And I have to flew back to Ecuador with a 6 months, 6 month pregnant, and it was really hard for us. And then we came back. We are by ourselves in New York. My mom came, and then everything shut down. So like I have like missing my dad so much. So then I started therapy, and I try different people because I think it's like until you find that person, And the first 2, they were okay, but I think it was just weird for me because like I started just like 3 weeks before, like everything shut down, and then we're like making phone calls, and it was just like it just feel weird for me. The other one was also like I feel like he had more problems than I had, So I was like, I'm feeling very bad, because I'm like, oh my God, I should be helping.
Her eyes.
I should be helping him, But then the therapist I have now, I really like her, and I think we, like she's not immigrant, but we have a PhDs in kind of similar stuff. So I think we kind of get it, like that's why, and we are connecting, and I really like her, and I'm making, she helps. I think therapy helps you to put things in perspective.
That's right.
And that has been like super helpful for me. So I think I think it's a matter of finding what it's useful for you. Like maybe it's therapy, maybe it's something else. Like I also go to church every Sunday, and that's the time that I have for me, and pray and kind of like say and say thank you for all the good things and help me with the bad things.
I think having a practice of gratitude is important too. And even if you're not spiritual, even if you're an atheist, you can have gratitude.
Of course.
That's something that helps me, and it's sort of what we do at night sometimes with the kids. We'll talk about everything as we're going to bed or at bedtime, everything that we're grateful and thankful for. I think it's really important to remind yourself of that. And that just keeps you up in some ways. I mean, not ecstatically happy all the time, but it doesn't let you fall into that, place where you're feeling alone and lonely and like you have nothing, or you're looking at everything and it's not enough, You fill yourself up and you realize you have everything you need at this particular moment in time. And at every moment in time in your life, if you look at it, you have everything you need, to get through that second, the next second, and the next second.
Oh, yeah.
I totally agree. Sometimes with teenagers, this is tough because it's hard for them to kind of see the good when there's so much problems. Like my daughter, I would say, listen, we are one of the very few who have everything. There are so many people, they don't have enough food. They don't have medical care. They die because they can't get basic things. And she is like, I don't care.
Yeah.
You don't know how this feels to me,
that's
right?
the teenage phrase right now. I got so angry with my son the other day. I'm like, I don't want to hear you saying those words ever again. I don't care. But that's his phrase right now. And I think it's just what the teenagers do. It's like, I don't care.
No, you have to
take
take a deep breath and just focus on what is it? What do you need? And often
now I just tell him one day you will care.
Well, often they just really need you to listen.
Yeah.
Because the other day, my daughter, so ever since she's not in therapy anymore, because she and her therapist, they decided that they were great, but there were some things she wasn't. Therapy is a little bit on the verge, right? From traditional to so much more. And it could be so much more. But so this place she went to is wonderful. The therapist was wonderful. But it has to be, I think, 80% or something of sessions from 100% each month, whatever. And she wasn't doing this. She had a big disclosure. She wasn't doing this because obviously she didn't want to talk about this big disclosure because it, like you said, it just gets you down.
Yeah.
Anyways, now back into the picture as a person she talks to. So she told me something. I said a few things. She was like, Mom, I just need you to listen. I was like, okay. She doesn't want to hear anything I'm saying. She just needs somebody to listen.
And that's
say,
something moms have to really be good at doing.
I agree.
Whatever it is. You have to train yourself, like, not to react. Not to respond.
Put your own background
and not to offer a solution.
Right?
They don't necessarily want a solution from you either. You
Absolutely.
know?
They just want to be heard and felt and be supported that way.
But as a mom, you're like, where's the Band-Aid? I want to fix this. Where's the medicine? I want to pour it down your throat. You're like,
absolutely.
I don't want
we
that
can
right
fix
now.
everything, right?
That might be the title of this episode. They don't want a solution.
Well, we can fix everything, but not everybody wants things fixed all the time, right?
No, they don't.
Yeah. It's not about the fixing
and you're
things.
right.
And
they
we
want
are
to be
so
heard.
much of fixing this, fixing that, this done, that done. I know I could fix anything I want to. But if the person doesn't want it fixed or is not ready for it to be fixed, is not at that point, then we cannot do anything at all, right? But it goes back into kind of that thing that question where it said, how do you support your kids without kind of putting yourself over them, right? You have to take yourself back.
Even if they conflict with your expectations.
Yes, because we expect it to be fixed.
Yeah.
It even goes into that direction of we want only the best for them and only support them. Sometimes we just can't, right?
Just take a step back.
Yeah. And they will tell you, like, I'm okay with this. It didn't need to be fixed, you know. My son had a racial issue with somebody in school, in the school that he was in. Some comments were thrown out, and he was very upset about that. But it was thrown out, attacking him racially, but also economically, because, we're in a school with very, very rich families. And they pointed out in a public arena that Zach is, one of the poorer kids because he's on financial aid, blah, blah, blah.
Unbelievable.
So he was really hurt by that and upset by that. And he was, festering, and he talked to us about it, and he had these little sort of pranks he wanted to play on this kid as revenge. And I was like, Zach, don't do that just yet. Just wait. Let's see what happens. Just hold back a bit, and let's see. Fate might take care of this kid anyway. So he held himself back a little bit for a couple of days, and then eventually I was like, so do you still feel that way? Do you still feel like you want to go after this guy? And he said, no, I'm okay with it. I'm done with it. And last week, this particular student got suspended and then expelled from school because he lost his temper with a girl and punched her. So he's out.
Karma.
And Zach's like, that was karma.
Yeah, karma.
Absolutely. And it's interesting to hear
There you
that
go.
that's private school, right? I almost said the name of the school before. I don't want to. That the same thing happens in public.
It
and in
happens
private.
everywhere.
It's
It happens
just, I guess,
everywhere.
part of that.
And people say, oh, your kid's in private school. All these problems have gone away. No, they haven't.
The
haven't.
history of why do we have private schools in the first place? It was because they didn't want kids to be around black kids.
Right.
That's how private schools came to be about. But we're not gonna go there. Well, let's
No.
just because
I'm looking for defense.
Yeah,
Rafael.
no. I could, but with
Being the director of a private
I
school.
have to start.
Trying to build my army up here.
The time. I have to watch the time. So, but there's some fun questions I have to get to. But before I get to the fun questions, there's one important question I didn't get to. So let me knock that out of the way. So it still ties into some of what we just hit. Social media is big. We can't escape it. We're going deeper and deeper into the social media world. And I'm sure Bertha will hit us with some PhD stuff. So, I saw this report on, I think it was Vice, if I'm not mistaken, but it tied into what a friend who has a podcast, well, he used to have a podcast, but he stopped. Dominic Rivera is a comedian in the DC area. He talked about this on his podcast. His son just joined the Air Force, and luckily he caught it before his son left. His son was 16, 17 when he's caught this problem. The son had been watching the manosphere videos, and then the son started talking in certain ways where you have to look down women, because the women are beneath men and they have to be put in their places. And then this Vice report that I saw last week was of teachers of sixth grade boys, of sixth grade teachers complaining that the boys in their classes have been watching the Andrew Tate guy and other manosphere influencers on YouTube, and they are having more cases of boys being violent to the girls in their classrooms, and they are saying that this is becoming more and more of a problem. And I didn't know about this manosphere thing because I don't play in that box in social on YouTube and on social media until I see the parody videos and I just laugh about it. And then when this Andrew Tate guy got arrested recently, then I realized that he has a huge following online from UFC fighters all quoting him about how men should be treated, how men have to be this and that. But it's got into the kids, and we can't deny it anymore. It's a lot of kids. It's very influential. So I know Edgar is too young to be there yet, but it's something that either for those of us who have the older kids and for those with the younger kids, we have to be aware of these kind of things. So how do you feel, and what are ways that how do you feel that something like this can be managed, and what can we do to prevent the manosphere damage that social media
in my
keeps
mind,
pushing?
First of all, I go to the media, right? And I would say that these things are going to happen. There's always going to be something like this that's going to come up on social media, that's going to come into our sphere, that's going to come into our lives, right? Mm-hmm. But we have to have some level of resilience, and we have to have some sense of self. Like, who are you as a person?
Absolutely.
Are you going to be influenced by every freaking thing you see and watch and hear and listen to? Or do you have some values that you stand for? These kids who are like being influenced by it may not come from I'm not like judging the families, but they may not have a strong roots or strong value system, right, that supports them. They may be lost in themselves. They may be seeking something, or they may just be curious teenagers who are like trying to rediscover themselves, and so they get influenced by something like this. This is going to be a fad. It's going to disappear. It'll go away. But that doesn't solve the issue, right? The next thing I would say is the way these things are solved is that it comes down to the individual family and the parents. That's what's going to fix this, whoever those people's parents are. If it was my son, for example, who came to me and I realized that he was sort of being influenced by this, and he thought that he had to demean or belittle women and then be abusive towards women, I'd go like full out. I'm taking him to a shelter where women who are abused go. I would take him to a shelter. We have a few in our neighborhood, and I would take him to meet with these women and meet with the people there that have to accept these women into the shelters and tell them what that life can be for a woman. And is this the person you want to be? You want to be that person that puts this woman in a scenario like this, that forces her to live in a situation like this, that creates a person that is so terrified that some of them can't even go out in society because they think they're going to be hurt and they're not going to be safe? Is that who you want to be, right? So that's what I would do as a mother. It's the same thing that I did when vaping started coming up into our lives. And he started middle school. He was only 12 years old. His friends were vaping. And this article came up in the Bronx about this boy who died from vaping. And so we looked for the funeral. And the plan was to take him to that boy's funeral and give him some, first-hand experience, education. If you want to vape, that's fine. But this is the path you're going on, If that's the choice you want to make, have all the information. Give them all the information. If this is the path you're going to walk on, look at the consequences. People do things because they do things that are bad, or do things that are impulsive, and do things that are very brash, and end up in situations of violence or perpetuate violence, I think, in my mind, because they don't think of the consequences a lot of the time. They think, I'm just going to do this because I feel like doing this. But they're not thinking about 5 minutes from now, 10 minutes from now, 10 weeks from now, a year from now, what that impact is going to be, what the consequence is. And that's something that I think, teenagers also, it's known as there's articles about it, they don't see consequences for their actions. So I think that's something that's important to bring into play. Yeah.
Drops mic. What else is there to say? I mean, absolutely, I so agree. To the first part of what you said about the background, I know my middle son has been watching Andrew Tate before, and he never mentioned anything about this. He is not the type of kid who would be in any way belittling to girls or women or misbehave himself in any way. The only thing, but that's boys. He would rough with some boys. But then again, boys also give you hints. He wanted to play soccer. Now he's playing soccer at PSU Select League 4 times a week. And that's where he gets this roughing up, and he doesn't have to do it anywhere else. It is so much on the family and what values you give your kids and how open you are too, right? I have this example from the same middle son. There is this experiment, tea bag experiment that they did at Kinderhouse. It's very bad advertisement, but you kind of light up a tea bag that has been emptied out, and then it flies from the heat.
Oh.
One day at home, he thought he needs to try it. I did not see it. I put on the stove, made my coffee. He must have got the fire from there. He comes to me. He says, there is fire in the room. The room was on fire.
Oh.
Thanks God, he first thing came to me
And
and let me know
it.
versus exactly trying to hide it. You have to just, you cannot, it will always be there. The bad things will always be there. You cannot shield your kids really from the bad things. You can delay it a little bit. My kids, for example, don't have any YouTube filters. They are able to choose. I would look what they're watching, and then I would talk to them about it or let them tell me about it. Or you see certain things, like if your kid says something weird, you're like, this must be from a YouTube video, so you can ask them whatever. But this open path of communication is so important. Plus, strengthen your kids. Yeah, give them enough alternatives that strengthens them and fills them up with other things as well. And I'll definitely take your advice with the boys. If they want to vape, let's go look at these things. That's amazing. Yeah. I always say you rather smoke cigarettes. Don't vape. Just take the cigarettes. I'm okay with that. I smoked when I was 15. My parents were okay with that. I stopped eventually. It's an experience. I feel like in this country, it's all up to that 21 or 18 or whatever it is. In my country, I grew up drinking, smoking, traveling, doing all the bad things with 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 while I was still in school. And then when I was actually going into the work field, I had this done. I didn't have to repeat that. I don't have to repeat this now. I'm not the mother who now can finally go back out and has to drink every weekend. I like to go to a party every so often, but I have not been to a party in probably since last October or whatever. So it's really there are developmental steps that are there for a reason, and the parents are there for a reason during these steps. It's just in this country, it's a little backwards. And we just, like, we as immigrant moms, parents, period, we just really need to kind of go with what we know and yeah,
100%.
and,
Yeah,
and go
I
against that
agree.
system a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know what to add because they have these ladies have say everything, but yeah, it's true. It's about the values because, like, like when you're thinking like, oh, this is happening right now. No, that's not true. That was happening when my mom was a kid. That was happening when my grandmom was a kid. So it has been happening forever. It's just that now maybe it's faster because there's like the
Yeah.
access to information that we didn't have before. But it's every time, and it keeps repeating. History keeps repeating itself. But I think it's about like the values that you inculcate in your kids, and it's also about having an open communication. Because if the kid can trust you, they can help. You can help them. So it's not about like being like a helicopter father parent and being over your kid, but it's able to kind of like make them trust you so you can be like, hey, yeah, like let's what do you think, and I'm like like I'm gonna take like the shelter thing that you say for sure if Edgar ever says something like that, but he's still 3, so he's still a little baby.
But it's also like Raphael said, this father just found this out, right? So you have to know where your kid's at. You have to be involved as well.
Yeah.
Like you have to be able to gauge, what they're doing and see, where their head is, where they spend their time. Definitely where their head is in media,
But-
and like you say, your kids can do whatever they want
Well,
on YouTube,
let
but you
me-
know what they're doing. which is
Slight
important.
correction. I think his son came to him.
Okay.
Yeah, his son came to him, but it was more like the son was had been consuming that stuff for a while and
Right.
was challenge. It was more like a challenge, or in a way, it was like putting into the dad, like why aren't you this type of man? Like this is how men should be, and you're not
Wow.
this type. And the dad had to like sit him down, like, dude, I used to actually be this. I thought this was how men should be. So he made it an episode on his former podcast, The
Right.
Mind of Dumb. And his podcast is quite funny because he likes talking about reality shows. I like being messy sometimes. So, we used to just joke on there. But this was like a serious episode, and he said, this is where I sat him down, like, and to the point you guys made about being open and open communication. This is where it became an open communication between himself and his son, because I believe that was the son where he's from his former marriage. So there was a period of time where the son wasn't in his life. So I believe that was part of the issue. But he didn't hide anything when he wasn't like, oh, this is not how you treat women, blah, 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 I'll punch you, that kind of thing. No, he was honest with his son and said, look, I used to think this way at one point in time, and I thought this is how women should be, and probably that's how I made the mistake with your mom that led to you. And I will always regret that kind of thing, but that wasn't how a man should be. And he used himself as the example, as a template, and showing that this is the mistakes that I made in the past. And that mindset was so wrong. And look at how many mistakes that I made. Do you want to go to that same path? Look at your grandfather, look at the mistakes that he made. Why we don't even talk today? Do you want that kind of thing for yourself? So when he started talking about it, that's when I started realizing, oh, there's something called this, and it's on the internet, and you got to be aware. Because is that making sense why there were some people who were in my circle who were always clashing? Because it's like, I joke around a lot, and they're like, that's a green light for them to throw some of these ideas at me. And I'm like, I was just joking, but why are you throwing, what the hell are you talking about? But these females need to be put down here. And I'm like, hold on. I was making some joke. What do you mean about females and the females don't serve men anymore, like in the 50s? Okay, you can reinvent a time travel machine and move back to the 50s then. I don't know how you survive as a black guy, but good luck with that. And the person's like, no, you don't understand. Women don't serve men anymore. Women need to put. I'm like, man, dude, okay, bye. I'm out of here. That's not, it's not a conversation. But it started making sense why there was the energy was there was a clash between certain people and myself because this thing, like Bertha said, it's always been there. But now with social media blowing up the way it's blown up now, I guess it's faster access, and now kids are getting more access to it. But if you don't have the right person around you to be honest about it and say, no, this is actually BS. You don't need this in your life.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very important phrase there,
Oh.
that this is BS when it comes to social media. Not that we're going to get too deep into social media,
Yeah.
but I think that's something everybody has to remind themselves of, because this is all created, orchestrated, it's been put together, it's been acted out by somebody. Most of it is to entertain. It doesn't have to be taken to the point where you're thinking, okay, this is life and this is how I should what I should apply to my life, you know? It's different if you're doing a course on a particular, I don't know, you're learning C++ programming or something like that. Yeah, that's real. You can learn that. That's fine. But if it's somebody talking about their opinions, it's opinion, right?
These people are not actually
Most
even
of it
about
is
opinion.
BS. That's what it is.
It's just my only concern is that they're going after, they're getting kids to think this is how the world works, and then the kid gets hit
Well,
with reality.
that's
one
how
day.
you create reality,
And,
though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
It
why.
is not only it is, I agree, orchestrated.
Mm-hmm.
It's been created, but this is how this generation
Well,
is
like,
growing up
reality-
with exactly that kind of, with those pictures in your
Yeah.
in their heads and with these expectations and so on and so forth. I think just really quickly going back to your friend, I wasn't even thinking about him anymore, but being a man, as a mother, being a man of boys too, but just as a woman, as a mother, being a man, I think has been and is really hard. And what is also really hard is father-son relationships. So hard, so difficult. So for us as women, right, we're like, oh yeah, we're open, we're talking about the things with our boys and this and that, it's all good. I think for men, it's just so tough. It's just so tough. Much more than, maybe like 20 years ago, they would have said, oh my God, for women, it's so tough, blah, 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 and we have to emancipate ourselves and this and that. No, being a man it's just tough. Expectation upon expectation. Don't do this, don't do that. You're too little of this, you're too little of that. It's insane. Totally insane. Anyways.
All right, so we're
Also,
literally-
like, I don't know you guys,
go
but
ahead.
like, my mom will just see me and she's like, "There's something wrong with you." You know, she has and I will be like, "No,"
Oh,
and
this had to be said.
she knew in my mind,
Yes,
like, there was
that
something.
intuition.
Maybe she didn't know exactly.
Hey, that
but she knew-
mother
she knew
radar.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
We have it so easy. We know.
and like,
I don't know if it's easy, but that
have
mother
it so
radar.
easy.
but you have it, like, even like,
Undeniable.
even like with Ashwin, sometimes he's like, and I'm like, something's wrong. Like, you have that intuition. You're like,
course.
there's like something in the eyes, not blinking. Whatever.
Oh,
you
know.
know it. You know.
Yeah, you can feel it right
yeah,
away.
we're so powerful, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we've gone way over time, and shout out to Josh for allowing us.
If
to
you
keep
cut out
going.
all the curse words, you'll get more time.
All right, one quick final. Let's end on a happier note, and a quick answer from everybody. What's your favorite immigrant mom experience so far? Murielle, go.
Oh my God, I love when, you're walking, you don't know what's going on, first time mom, doing something wrong, and then these older ladies are coming to you. Don't let your kid touch this and that, there are germs. And I'm like, okay. Now I would say, fuck off, right?
Right.
But as a first time mom, these ladies, they always like to tell you what you're doing so wrong. And we don't want to be these ladies. We just really don't.
All right.
I
Preet?
think well, it wasn't fun. It was an eye-opening experience. My little guy would wake up at 4 a.m. Until he was 4 years old every day. And it was exhausting. And so a lot of the times at the weekends, we'd be the first ones at the playground. Like literally they're opening the gates at 6:30 and I'm there at the playground. And he loved the sand pit and we used to let him get
Yeah,
in
that
that sand.
sandpit, something about it.
He was very in love with that sand pit.
germs.
I'm sorry to say this, but I might ruin the sand pit for you. We saw the rats leaving the sand pit. Because we were that early in the morning. I'm like, okay, I'm definitely a clueless mom. I had no idea, and I've been letting my kid go in that, and I've seen other moms, they're like, stay out of the sandpit.
After
After that, I was like,
true
okay.
New Yorker. That's a sign. It's
I know, right?
Stop that.
Play with the rats.
No, exactly.
That's good. Make friends with the rats.
Make friends with the
They
rats.
may
They
be
own New
more
York.
loyal
own New
than
York.
many others.
Oh
my
What
gosh.
about you, Bertha?
Oh my god! Like, I don't know. I think I haven't lived that much with Edgar because he's just 3. But my favorite experience as an immigrant mom, I think I really like the fact that Edgar it's so different than my nephews because like he eats curry, like he eats like my sister like just put salt in the chicken, like just like he eats garam masala, he eats
That's
like
good.
all like like different spices, which it would have never happened in Ecuador. Like people are like 25 and they're just trying something different, so I think I really love the fact that he eats like everything, like of course like Indian food, Ecuadorian, like he eats miso, he eats like every single recipe, like cuisine
That's my man.
so that's like it's something like just like so different from the way I was raised. Yeah.
I see future play dates with Raphael and Edgar.
We've met, we played. It's
You
food,
can
food.
take Clara to
I'm
get
all,
her
I'm all
nails
about
done.
food. I'm all about food. All right. So once again, can't thank you all enough for giving me your time and for hanging out with us. Really appreciate you all, and shout out to Josh again for giving us extra minutes to record this wonderful episode. Thank you to everyone listening. Please share your favorite immigrant mom moment with us, and send us emails. Leave any concerns. Any answers. All the questions we got. You listening to the episode? Share your moments and share your opinions. And I'm down to listen. And happy Mother's Day to everyone. And see you all at the next episode. And don't forget to support and give us money too. We need it. We're not socialists, we're capitalists. Remember that.
Absolutely.
All right. Bye.
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 Thank you for the privilege of your company. Thanks for listening to White Label American. If you enjoyed the show, please give a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. You can follow the show on all social media platforms. Visit the White Label American website for links for donations, episodes, feedback, guests, merch, and newsletter. Don't forget to download the free White Label American app on the Google Play Store and Apple coming soon. Thank you for the privilege of your company.